It was some years ago that I first came to this little cemetery here in Glenorchy near Queenstown in the south of Aotearoa, and since then I've been to two other Glenorchys, one in Hobart and of course the original in Scotland. The township here was named Glenorchy after the one in Scotland when it was first surveyed in the 1860s. And actually looking around the cemetery, whilst there's some pretty unique and local inscriptions and symbolic use of stone, there's also a little bit of a connection to places like Scotland. So gonna have a wee wander and we'll have a look. It's a fairly small cemetery which appears to still be in use. A lot of the grave markers are somewhat reminiscent of ones you might see in other parts of the country, but they do kind of have a bit of a mountain feel at times with these kind of jagged stele sticking out. And even actually, as I just sort of pass that, they kind of hint to the kind of place that we are. People taken by misadventure, the stones and the sort of semi-petrified wood and whatnot that's left as grave goods. And of course you have the long lists of family memorialised all in a single place, but even those that perhaps died elsewhere overseas, such as old Alfred here, died in Norseman, Australia. It's almost like this was a well-placed stone. That, yeah, it's kind of a place for a reunion, as the Bryant family have done. They've obviously erected this in memorial of their family. Yeah, Queenstown was, in essence, first surveyed and set up here as a result of the gold rush that was very prevalent in the southern parts, but also over in Oz and earlier in Canada. So you might see a fair few people, even though this is a bit of a later period one, miner accidentally drowned. And then another accidentally drowned, of course. They do say that drowning was the New Zealand death, and that it also was pretty closely followed with drinking as a cause of death, which often resulted in drowning. But you can also see on the grave markers here that kind of connection to other places, often people specifically having where they were born. But also, along with the place of birth, very obvious hints in the names. MacDonald being probably one of the most Scottish of surnames that there are. And McGregor, of course. But yeah, it's definitely got the feel of a mining town cemetery, or at least an Alpine town cemetery. And as always, you're going to have some of your connections to the First and Second World Wars, or in this case, perhaps looking there, I would say the Indo-Malaysian Wars. Alexander Campbell would have been in the Air Force, RNZAF. Some of the earlier ones will be of the, as they put it, pioneering farmers that came and, I guess we'd say, claimed these lands and often had a life that they could never have had back in the UK. Many of us really have benefited from that, and others much less so. That's pretty much all my family names there. Charles William Henry. My name actually does mean Charles. It's just a European version of which I have no connection to. Blame my parents. Some lovely horses. There is water nearby. Hopefully no kelpies. But yeah, even though Glenorchy here is not considered specifically to be a Scottish township, there certainly are a lot of Scottish names. So the connection is pretty undeniable, and it's actually something you will see the further you go south. Here in Aotearoa, is the Scottish influence is just prominent. You'll see it in not only the place and street names, but obviously on the grave markers of people from the 1800s that came here and made this a home. And I guess you could say became true locals. Oh, that's a shame. Wee bottle there. Someone wanting to use it to put flowers in. But certainly these kinds of grave markers are pretty unique. I don't think I've seen them anywhere other than here in New Zealand. Maybe they're used elsewhere. If you have seen them, why don't you drop a comment and let me know whereabouts. Some of our more recent residents. Yep, very much still in use. I don't think any relation to me, but you never know. Maybe somewhere along the way. Let's pick up grave goods that get knocked over, though it's pretty windy here, so they probably won't last that long, to be fair. They'll be likely down again, but can do our best. Yeah, we're kind of really fortunate modern day. We can have these kinds of images on grave markers and actually see the faces of those that they memorialize. overall it's a lovely wee cemetery, and I mean, you kind of can't beat that skyline, that's for sure. Anyway, on to the next one.